So that'll be exciting. Nate Hastings, Vice President of the Chamber Collaborative.
Yes, sir.
Your title. Andrew, what would you like your title to be today?
Just local guy.
Just Andrew Simonis of Simonis Realty?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Real estate operator.
Real estate guru, mogul.
Nah, don't embellish it.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Trey Farkas, and on today's episode, a roundtable discussion about what is going wrong for small businesses in Portsmouth and what they can do to get it right. This episode is presented by Sage Interior Design and Kim Vargo, where we'll also discuss the state of Seacoast real estate, Portsmouth Restaurant Week, and how America's poor international standing will affect tourism this summer. I am Trey Farkas, and I am in the office of the Chamber Collaborative. It is a gloom day here in April, but I'm very excited to be here because I'm talking to two of my favorite gentlemen on the Seacoast. Nate Hastings, the Vice President of the Chamber Collaborative here in Portsmouth, and Andrew Simonis, the real estate king himself of Simonis Realty here in downtown Portsmouth, making his second appearance on the show. You are in rarefied air, Andrew. Only a handful of people.
I can't imagine a bigger honor.
This is amazing. And you know what is an even bigger honor for you two? This is the 50th episode
Hell yeah.
of Seacoast Stories. And you two are here to have a candid discussion about what is going on in Portsmouth.
I'd say, did you ever believe you'd get here? But I know you did.
Oh yeah, I absolutely believed I would get here. I mean, we're coming up on 9 months of doing this show, and it's exceeded my expectations. I love doing this. Andrew, you were actually one of the OG supporters of this show. You were actually the first person to recognize me in public from this show the second week of Seacoast Stories' existence. I'm walking around Market Square, and you stop me. I had no idea who you were. You say, "Hey, are you the podcast guy?" And I look around and I'm like, "Wait, who, me? Am I the podcast guy?"
Can I be honest with you?
Please.
You're still in my phone as Troy Farkas, podcast guy.
Yes.
And I don't anticipate changing it.
Yes, that's exactly what I want to be known as.
Yeah.
But you were the first to recognize me out in public and to say hi. I love when people come up to me and say that they listen to the show, and you were the very first to do that. So you hold a special place in my heart. So I'm very excited to have you here. I want to tell you both a story that I think really speaks to the cuteness of Portsmouth and why we love this town so much. Last night, knowing I was going to talk to you both today, AKA knowing I was going to have 3 microphones, I bought a third microphone a few days ago, didn't open it.
Of course not.
Until the last minute, failed to realize that I did not have the XLR cable, the cord necessary to plug the microphone into my recording device here. And then I go to Amazon. I'm like, wow, I can't even get this on Amazon quick enough. I need this in like 12 hours. And so then I'm panicking. And then it hits me that I have a friend who also records some stuff, and I know she has an XLR cable. So I text her at 9:30 last night. Hey, like I'm doing this thing at noon tomorrow with multiple mics, need an XLR cable. Can I borrow yours? And she said, yeah, come by at 8 a.m. tomorrow. She lives in West End Yards. And so I go there, pick up this cable. She then invites me in to her home with her and her husband, and they just invite me in for coffee, and we just sit at their table for an hour, just chit-chatting. And as this was happening, I just had this moment of like, this is so old school, old world. You're asking your neighbor, hey, can I borrow the butter? And then you just like get into a conversation. Yeah. And I think things like that is what makes this town so special. As I always say, one of my favorite adages is it's not where, but who you're with that really matters. And first and foremost about this town, which we're going to discuss at length today, it's about the people. All this stuff around us is amazing. The natural beauty is amazing. There's so many amazing things to do, but none of that would really matter if we didn't have incredible people here. The reason I feel so welcomed here and why I want to make this place my home for the long haul is because I have met the 10 best people in my entire life, all within the last year here. And that's why I love this town so much and why I care so much about it and the things going on in it. So I just wanted you two to know that, because I'm sure, as you guys are so entrenched in Portsmouth the day to day, and probably people are banging on your doors for the bad more so than the good, and you probably can lose sight of the good from time to time.
Sure.
So I just wanted you guys just to hear that, because I think that's what makes this town so special.
I think there are a ton of anecdotes in that exact vein where whether it's an individual or a business or a group needs sort of that olive branch, and people always come up and step up to the plate for it. And so we can get into that more, but I think that's a really relevant example of today's conversation.
Yes, exactly. But the impetus for this conversation is I'm strolling around downtown a few weeks ago, and I see yet another store closing, 50% off, everything goes. This was at 10,000 Villages. This was just after I had gone to Life is Good, the same kind of closing sale 2 weeks prior. And then just that same day, I get the news that Stroll Cafe in downtown Portsmouth is closing. And then my mind went to, wow, there's a bunch of places closing. Litherman's Brewing is a ghost town. I don't know what is happening there. Colby's, which I understand was a staple, they're gone. Book and Bar, staple, they're gone. A whole bunch of things have closed in the last year, and it makes me really sad. And then when I posted about this on social media, it got a big reaction as well. The residents are really upset, and it's so sad because you get to know the people behind these businesses, you frequent these businesses, these are hangouts, these are your friends, and then just like that, they're gone, and it's really heartbreaking. So I want to get to the bottom of this with you guys. I know there's a lot of factors, and each business has its own story that, Nate, maybe you don't know the ins and outs of each of them.
Sure.
But just big picture, Nate, what is happening right now in Portsmouth? Why are these businesses going through such a tough time?
Well, when you send me this, and it's something that a lot of us are working on, and a lot of us are concerned about, and a lot of us are involved in, I think you hit the nail on the head. Each one has their own story. There's a few different buckets that I think some of them fall in. A good amount of those are ones where the decision might not even have been local. So I think that's something to bear in mind in some places. But it's been a challenging economy for a little while, and it's unfortunate. And not all of those are full closures either. So, I mean, thankfully, we still have Stacy involved with Stroll, just further outside of town over at the Commerce Way location where they're still doing their great catering. But it is unfortunate to lose that nice living room. I think that Stroll on Port Walk was sort of a second office to a lot of our members. I think it was very common to walk by and see a lot of familiar faces there. And so those changes hurt, and there's still changes from back when I first came out to the Seacoast that I still miss dearly. So yeah, it's always a challenge.
Andrew, what's your take on what's been going on downtown? You are very in the know of everything that's going on downtown, both from a residential real estate and a commercial real estate, and you sit on several boards in the town as well. So you are very intimate with the discussions regarding small business here. Intimate
and equally as enthusiastic. In the same vein as I like to be a patron of a lot of these businesses, Stroll included, 10,000 Villages included, Life is Good, certainly. But I also revert back to there's always an evolution or a life cycle for any business, whether that's a small business or a large corporation. You can always find some sort of wave or trend line in how a business will open, adapt, evolve, and even sometimes close, as we've seen. So yeah, obviously it's incredibly unfortunate for a place like Stroll to have to shutter a downtown location that is so accessible to so many, but their adaptation was to open in an office park where they found their clientele to be primarily accessed and most convenient. So as much as there's a negative connotation, I think here today we should emphasize the positive ability for a place like Stroll to pivot and recognize where their next opportunity may be.
Yeah, 100%.
And, that was just in the paper yesterday with Ronaldo's in Northampton, one of the longest standing Seacoast restaurants opening a second location in a different concept. So there are just so many answers to it. It's not a silver bullet, like this is what happened, this is why it happened, but maybe just an awareness or alertness to how they have to adapt.
Now, you guys have been here longer than me. Someone told me the other day that this turnover that I'm referencing is pretty standard actually here, that what's happened over the last year isn't actually out of the ordinary for this town. Does that sound accurate to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot happening at once. It definitely does feel like that. And there's some that are very publicly located, like the Good Vibes, Life is Good store. It's right on Congress. It's very noticeable. The location of where Litherman's was, right by the arch, right in the middle of so much. It's hard to miss that one. And there is a cycle to it, whether it's on Deer Street, State Street, Congress Street. They do happen, but there's something, like Andrew was saying, something new comes in. So Raleigh, moved on to the next thing, and now we have Reedmore, which, as much as we'll miss Book and Bar, I'm excited that Reedmore is stepping into that space, not that physical space, but that retail space. The books and the brews space.
Now, a big concern that I've heard from people is obviously Portsmouth, makes its money on the tourism scene, and here we are gearing up for a busy spring and summer, but yet we have all these vacancies downtown, which is an eyesore for people who are coming to Portsmouth for the first time, which ultimately we want people to come to Portsmouth for the first time and fall in love with it and come back every summer. But if they come here for the first time and they see every other storefront has a for sale sign in it, that's bad luck. How do you anticipate the current state affecting people coming to this town from outside?
Sure. I mean, so first of all, there's, new things coming in, some we know about, some that I'm sure we haven't heard of yet, but they're certainly in the works. I've had a little bit of a back burner project with a couple of retailers and a few other places to actually get some content in some of these windows. So while they might be spaces that are in transition, they're not either just, brown paper or the same old for sale signs. So that's a project that has been in play for a little while. We've got some great architects that have volunteered to print some large format content, so we can put some information about our community there to make it a friendlier visual for the time being, and hopefully repurpose those documents when there's a new space that's going to transition and something new is in that space. Because you're right, we wouldn't want it that somebody goes, oh, Portsmouth, I've driven by many times, never been through there, I'm going to drive through town, and for them to feel like there's no reason to get out. We want them to know there's a reason to get out, to shop, to play, to eat, to have a good time. And so we are working on some things that hopefully we'll be seeing soon.
And I do want to, and that's awesome that you're doing that. I do hope to bring in Hope Anderson, the tourism manager here later on. I saw this funny video the other day. I forget what account put it out, but it was like, we asked ChatGPT to roast Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The self-appointed cultural capital.
Yeah. And it was pretty funny. And basically the gist of it was, we have all these high-end stores that no one can afford, and it's really hoity-toity and whatnot. What do you make of just the current makeup of the selections downtown? Because so much of it is now like high-end apparel that does price-wise seem out of reach for the younger folks like myself who are not. Well, I know you're probably raking in the dough, but I know I certainly am not. Just like the current makeup of the stores downtown, do you think we're in a good spot with the stores that we do have?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. It's an insightful question because there's no one answer. You have to ask that question to all nearly 23,000 people in Portsmouth, or the hundreds of thousands of people that come here on a seasonal basis, because our downtown corridor is what I would classify as destination retail, where people are specifically seeking out a certain product or certain look or environment. And so they're going to drive downtown to find that. An example could be J&G. It's a specialty cosmetics store who, whether it's their community involvement, their presence, or their reputation, people want to shop at J&G. Now, have I ever stepped in there? Maybe once.
It's pretty cute.
It's great. and they are very good at what they do. So I would give the downtown retail landscape right now sort of the credit as the retailers are very good at what they choose to be involved in. And yes, do we want more variety? Do we want more offering? Absolutely. That's always the case. But sort of like an interior mall has always had a life cycle, I think downtown retail has the same application.
Right. And speaking to the microphone a little bit more, act like you've been here before.
Man.
Rookie.
I'm sorry.
Nate, the chamber is now collaborating on this really cool thing downtown. I got to take part in it in the month of March, and when this episode drops, it will be the week of the Thursday, every third Thursday of the month, Local Love.
Tie-in. Good tie-in.
Yes. Can you tell me more about, what this is? Because I want the people to know about this and why, and what the motivation is behind this.
Yeah, sure. So full on disclaimer, I am not the founder of Local Love.
Take credit.
No. I couldn't. It's a great collaboration with our downtown retail community that really from the chamber side, Hope Anderson, Ben Van Camp, have really been kind of running point on. But it follows a similar model to two other things that we're involved in. One is Restaurant Week and one is Art Round Town. The similarities is they are part of the community coming together on a specific sort of promotion. And in the case of Local Love, it is staying open late on the third Thursdays. And part of that is engaging with the local customers, staying open late. And I think part of it too is I'm guilty of this, and I've been around the Seacoast over 20 years, which is shocking. Sometimes we kind of get in survival mode where, for example, like I remember for the 400th parade, I came in, I parked on the outskirts with my kids. We walked in, we went to the parade, and then I got the heck out of here. As opposed to hanging out, checking things out. And that's something that I would like to see more people doing. And I think we're seeing with the Shop and Stroll events that's happened around the Christmas parade. And part of this Local Love thing is reaching out to those local folks saying, come on out. Like if you're going to make the destination shop, like Andrew was saying, this is a time where shops will be open. And we'll be waiting, expecting you and ready to serve you and ready to be there. Because, we've all had that experience when you're like, oh, I want to go. And you don't check if something's going to be open. You go downtown, you go somewhere and you find that it's not open like you had hoped it was going to be. So it's predictable, shared buy-in, advertising, and going on. It's been going on for 6 months, maybe 7. It's still very new. One of my favorite things was the second time they were doing it, I saw somebody online saying, this is the first I've heard about it. And I took that to be a great thing. It was like, because this is only the second time it's happened. And, and sometimes, we hear, I've never heard of this and it's been going on for years. And this one, I feel like we were catching it earlier. And so it's similar to also Art Round Town, which has been going on for a very long time. It's that first Friday model. So,
and I still tell people about Art Round Town for the first time.
Totally.
It's crazy how many people don't know about it. It's such a cool thing.
Yeah, and that's been going on for well over 10 years, 20 almost, I think. But that's another one. It was brought together by those gallery folks, and we've stepped in to assist to do some kind of like hub of the wheel things, but still it's that community that's driving that initiative. Same with Local Love.
Yeah. So every third Thursday, the stores stay open until...
Participating stores stay open 5 to 8 is the time frame that's there. Many of them are, may already be open till 6 in that time frame, but they're staying open till 8. They may be doing a special promotion. I know, for example, G. Willikers has been doing some really cool events. Sometimes there might be some special product sampling. Sometimes there might be food or drink, depending on it. But it's a chance to do something special.
Yes. And by food or drink, you mean sometimes there's wine, because I know at my last Local Love, I walked in, I forget where, but there was wine. And if there's wine, I am there. Very cool. Okay. Thank you. I'm so glad that you guys are doing that. Andrew, if someone wants to open a business in downtown Portsmouth and they came to you, whether you're like related to selling them the property, working, or if they just want your business advice as someone who has worked hand in hand with so many downtown business owners, if they came to you and asked, what pitfalls do I need to avoid, or what do I need to know to be able to succeed as a business in downtown Portsmouth? What do I need to do to not follow the path of other businesses that ultimately could not make it?
Well, I would start with one thing, and there's a great adage in the game of golf: when you're given an advantage, take it. Now, I'll get to your question, and I think this is really important to mention. There's a group, an organization called Seacoast Score. And so Seacoast Score is a free, volunteer-run, small business consulting organization where entrepreneurs, small business owners, really of anyone, any capacity, can go in and get free business consulting. They can get anything from accounting to tax advice to employee hiring, insurance advice. And the group is made up of a variety of professionals in all of those fields. And to me, one of the biggest components of their offering, and the Small Business Administration does this as well through UNH, is something called business idea validation. And so to your question, when someone approaches me with an idea that, okay, I want to open a coffee shop, I want to open a restaurant, I want to open a fine retailer of trinkets in downtown Portsmouth, power to you. 100%. We love it. We'll root for you. But I want to know from a fundamental level, can they survive? I can sell you anything, I can lease you anything that you want, but my hope is that you survive. It doesn't do me any good to say, hey, I put that retailer there, I put that restaurant there. Oh, and by the way, 3 years later,
right.
They
That's
closed.
not something you can point to for you.
That's not that exciting. So I guess to answer your question, pointing them in the right direction would be, what do you have mapped out for yourself? What is your small business strategy? And how can we align your interests or your needs and priorities to put you in the best possible scenario downtown Portsmouth? On a more refined level, to answer your question, downtown Portsmouth has so many nuances to it, in the fact that we have mixed use buildings. We have buildings that are approved for certain uses, i.e. a bar versus a cafe versus a full kitchen versus not a full kitchen. Or you have a certain street corner that is more lively at a certain time of the day. And in our original podcast, Troy, we talked about Hearth Market and how they opened up with a food hall concept and have since changed and really manipulated that offering to be more appropriate. So to me, a small business owner approaching downtown Portsmouth, trying to open something, has to be very willing, has to be very determined and interested in the big picture so that they can survive. Fresh Press, which is previously a smoothie concept, exclusively smoothies, adapted and became Salud. Now they still sell smoothies, but they recognized the shifting need or demand for more of a lunch offering. And they did that nearly seamlessly. And Aaron, the owner, who I know works really hard to put out the best possible product, did that and did it with the same consistency and enthusiasm as he was doing the smoothies prior. So I hope that answers your question. I was long-winded.
Yeah. A lot of business owners that I've talked to, I know from who I'm close with, she told me the rents are way too high. And that was everyone's, whether they were business owners or not, when I put out this series of social media posts, like rent is too high. Undisclosed person who owns a business downtown told me that their rent is $7,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that they had to negotiate for that. And they've had to fight to keep it that low. I don't know where that falls in comparison to the other rents for commercial real estate properties, but in my naive opinion, that sounds crazy expensive.
Yeah, I can speak to that more. As you move through the cycles of life, whether it's real estate or business or whatever facet you have that you're touching a business entity in, whether it's ownership, you have to recognize the changing of hands. So as properties sell downtown, the owner's basis, so where they own that property at and what they need to make on that property changes. And obviously in the last, let's say 10 years in downtown Portsmouth, that's only gone up. Now, the economy generally on the national scale has also really been increasing at an alarming rate since prior to COVID. And is it always going to be that way? No. So I don't think rents will always be these drastic numbers that are preventative. Now, in the same breath, we want to be more enabling in Portsmouth. So one of the ideas is hopefully to shift what the city of Portsmouth allows for a retail or restaurant concept to be a smaller idea. And what I mean by that is, can we have kiosks? Can we have smaller concepts or dual concept spaces where a clothing retailer could also be a coffee shop?
Like Treeline Outfitters in the West End is a perfect example.
This offers different income streams where Treeline Outfitters is not open strictly from 9 to 5. And the more offering they can provide to their demographic or their target audience, for the better, right? And now they've done activations, it's called, for a retailer. An activation is anything that brings people in for a reason other than what they currently sell or whatever their primary offering is.
They have run clubs, bike clubs.
Yeah. Precisely. And to me, that is the core idea for Portsmouth. It's a cultivation of space. It's a cultivation of people. Again, this enabler idea that hopefully you bring in your audience for a reason other than to purchase. You don't want to make it transactional. And Portsmouth is so much about community that almost like forgetting about the transaction and just saying, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're trying to do. Local love is another example where, obviously they want you to buy something because that is their core business model, but also they want you to then tell your friends. Maybe you buy something later on as a gift. Maybe it's just this innate background noise in my head. Like if I need skincare products, where would I recommend somebody go to do that? So am I buying something? No, but I know because Jane is so passionate and consistent and for the better of the community that I would recommend that business. And as we look at smaller concepts for retail stores or restaurants, there's a really important concept that I think we have to introduce for your audience and for you all. In commercial real estate or retail real estate, there's something called sales per square foot, which I can dilute this as simple as possible. It's your total revenue divided by the total amount of square feet that you have in your space. So a very simple example, if you do $100,000 in total revenue and you exist in 1,000 square foot space, you have $100 per square foot sales per square foot. So, that's an interesting metric and almost like a validating metric. So if you're a small business looking to open here, you would really want to determine what that number is to make your $7,000, $10,000 monthly rent really relevant. Because if I just say $7,000, well, to the GOAT restaurant versus Nakata Art Gallery, those are very different numbers.
Yes.
Okay. So we have to understand where that balance or equalizer is, and that sales per square foot number is how you would derive that.
I love that you kind of brought up the bring people in so they're familiar. One of my first things that I participated in when I joined the chamber staff nearly 4 years ago, which shocks me that it was that long ago, I went to a Let's Talk Tourism meeting. And this was July of 21. So tourism is just getting restarted again. And we were up at the rooftop at the NBO. And I was watching folks from the Colwyn Hotel groups that own the AC and Residence Inn and Hampton Inn, talking with the folks from the Sheraton openly, honestly about where they're seeing their visitors coming from, where they're going to, size of the party, ages of the people, like just purely trading information and like supporting each other. And I was like, okay, this is not exactly what I expected in a good way. This is awesome. And I've seen that trend continue of the groups supporting each other and into local love. So as Hope has been participating in Leadership New Hampshire, I've covered a few of the Talking Shop retail meetings for her and gotten to know some of the retailers and been very encouraged watching some of these folks, like, for example, Wendy from the Kennedy Gallery and Jeanette from Kilwins, mentoring some of the newer, or mentoring might be a little too strong, but sharing information, certainly, with newer retailers that have just come into the community in the last, sometimes less than 6 months, sometimes in the last year or two, kind of talking about what February has historically looked like versus January versus these other times. So this sharing of information, I think, is very important, and we should acknowledge that the folks are doing a good job in that space.
Yeah, if I can provide 2 cents on that. My thesis is that there's enough business to go around. It's not me versus you. It's Portsmouth versus, somebody else. There's another destination, right? Because you talk about somebody that's driving through and saying, why should I stop there if there's vacancy in the storefronts? Well, let's give them a reason, whether it's to stop at Kennedy Gallery. If you stop at Kennedy Gallery, well, by happenstance, maybe you pop into Cup of Joe. Maybe you stop into Shalimar India. All of these different kind of run-ins or residual instances that allow downtown businesses to collaborate like that. And the chamber is so good at it, the way that they facilitate people, they facilitate information and really advocate. So I think that is what distinguishes Portsmouth away from your general like retail plaza, where a retail plaza in my mind is largely transactional, and downtown Portsmouth is this experience. It's an event or it's an occasion that we want to present the best possible image for those coming to town, whether you live up the street or you live in London. It doesn't matter. It's just this function of what is it that we are trying to achieve, and that's stability and consistency of an offering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I would love to see in this town? Have you guys been to the Live Freely Market in Hampton?
Yeah.
I have not, but I learned about it actually at that very meeting a couple weeks ago.
Yes. Had them on the podcast recently. Alyssa is doing an amazing job with it. It's just a collection of small businesses all under one roof. Think like indoor farmers market, just without the tomatoes and with other goods instead. That could be something fun in one of these vacant downtown storefronts where I'm sure you have a bazillion people knocking on your door, Andrew and Nate, who want to have a downtown business but are afraid of their ability to survive. And the people at the Live Freely Market also have those same concerns about having their own storefront. Alyssa herself had to close a storefront in Hampton. But so bringing together all of these businesses under one roof, then they can all survive under this one roof. I would love to see a collaborative thing like that in downtown.
Yeah, they're what we do see sometimes is pop-ups. We don't see a ton of them. One thing that I think is great is how Izzy's kind of every winter does turn into something different. I think that's a great use of that space. It would be awesome to see more of the places that are designed to be seasonal do a little bit more of that. And then, maybe if there are some opportunities where, yes, something is going in there, but not for a little while, can we help facilitate something happening there?
So it's so ironic that this comes up because a week and a half ago, I was at Liar's Bench and it was packed. It was absolutely slammed to the gills. And the first person I see when I walk in is none other than the mayor of Portsmouth, Daglin.
Shout out.
And I walk in, I say, hey, how's it going, Daglin? He points to his kids. It's Pasta Wednesday at Liar's Bench. And he goes, how's it going? Like, tell me about real estate. Tell me about this. And we got into this conversation and he goes, well, what would make it better? And it was exactly this idea you just brought up of breaking down retail spaces to be more accessible is really the word I think we want to use. And, I said, well, can we start talking about this at a city level? He goes, absolutely. And then just by nature of it, Dagan, the owner of Liars, came over and he goes, what's up, guys? And within 35 seconds, we are now having this full-fledged conversation while the mayor's kids are just like eating pasta. And it was, again, a testament to Portsmouth and how willing and interested in success that I think this scales from one individual to the city level to the business owners. Like, there should be no resistance to someone with a good idea.
Coming up, our ideas for revitalizing downtown Portsmouth, and an inside look into how the city is addressing the housing crisis. But before that, there's a new Portsmouth business with a cool story, and I promise they do not need our ideas. At Sage Interior Design, you'll find an adorable shop filled with artisanal home goods, plants, and custom-made furniture. They specialize in cultivating good times and designing spaces that make it feel like summer all year round. Why does that matter to them? Because when Jordan Cashman moved here from California, she found herself missing the beachy vibes of West Coast living rooms. So to recreate that California cool feeling, she founded Sage so she could trick herself into thinking that we're in paradise 365 days a year and that Laguna Beach might as well be Venice Beach. When designing your living room, kitchen, home office, game room, man cave, or podcast studio, you can go to Sage to bring West Coast flavor to the East Coast and to turn your Pinterest board into reality. And this week only, when you go to check out at Sage, you can tell them Seacoast Stories sent you so you can get 10% off your next purchase. Offer expires April 20th, so act now, perhaps this Thursday at Local Love. Now, if you're like me, you may also create a mess when you start rearranging furniture. But luckily, I know someone who can get you more organized. Well, maybe she can't do anything about that junk drawer of yours, but she can definitely help you get more organized at work, which is way more important. As the mom of twin toddlers, Kim Vargo knows a thing or two about being overwhelmed, which is why she is the perfect person to help you deal with the overwhelm in your life. With expertise in programs like Dubsado and Honeybook, Kim helps you streamline your processes, get more efficient, and cut down on those time-sucking admin tasks like organizing inquiries or sending contracts, those things that take you away from creating what you love most. When I sat down with Kim one-on-one, she took the time to understand the Seacoast Stories business, the issues that I'm dealing with behind the scenes, and then she gave me practical steps I can take today so that I can spend my precious time doing what I love, researching, interviewing, editing, stuffing my face with nachos from the goat, and being a social butterfly at all the Seacoast coffee shops. If you also want to get your time back so that you can focus on creating meaningful things again, then please visit kimvargo.com/contact. In the message box, just tell her that Seacoast Stories sent you for a free call and a custom discount tailored to your business needs. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Sage. And thanks to all of you. Now back to my conversation with Nate Hastings and Andrew Simonis. Andrew, the Seacoast king of real estate.
There it is again.
There's a lot happening
right now in downtown Portsmouth. A lot of things are being built. A recent Seacoast Online article said that we could see the town hit a population of 25,000, which it has not seen since the mid 90s, I believe. I think we're about like 23.5 or something like that. There's a whole bunch of things in the works. Rather than have me restate this entire article, Andrew, can you tell me about some of the building that is happening in Portsmouth residentially?
We've got plus minus about 1,000 new multifamily units. And multifamily, by definition, would be either for rent or for sale under one roof. So that 1,000 units is comprised of anything from market rate units to workforce housing or quote unquote affordable housing and luxury condos. So those projects are, I would say, 60% in the downtown area or the downtown proper. And then the remaining 40% would be other parts of Portsmouth. So outside of that main downtown area where everyone has got their eyes peeled on.
Okay, so the main issue that a lot of people have, including myself, who want to eventually one day buy property, can't. It's just so freaking expensive. And I'm sure a lot of this stuff that is being built, while we do have a housing shortage here, I don't know if it necessarily solves the affordability problem that we're facing.
Again, going back to an easy phrase, housing is affordable when supply matches demand. In the last 10 years in Portsmouth, as a generalization, we have had significantly more demand than we have had supply. So the article headlined as 1,000 new units or 1,500 new units in the city is really a testament to the lack of supply that we've been suffering from. And suffering is a very intentional word because what does that do? When you suffer from lack of supply, that demand skyrockets. In conjunction with that, we've also found that neighboring states, i.e. Massachusetts, has implemented some of these things like the millionaire's tax or different living policies that have pushed people over the border. Now, we would not be New Hampshire, we would not be Portsmouth, the city of the open door, if we said, no, thank you, we don't want you to move here. So it's a difficult line to tiptoe on because we want people to come, we want people to relocate here, not only for their family or their personal interests, but also from a business interest too. So New Hampshire and again, Portsmouth specific, we've got so many advantages like dividend-free tax income, estate-free income. It is really important to acknowledge because without that, we would be depleting. And this headline reads a lot differently if the population is declining. And that's when things get really scary. So in 1991, when Pease Air Force Base closed, Portsmouth population was 26,200 about. And today we're sitting at 23,000. So can Portsmouth support up to 26,000 people? Yeah, I'm sure it can. Do we need to make sure that we are utilizing smart growth and smart infrastructure growth? Absolutely. Those are things that with those in mind, we can find a balance of supply and demand, and we can hopefully allow and enable, whether it's a younger generation or even the older generation, because some people on fixed income are facing the same harsh realities that young people are. We want to enable those people to stay and age in place or start their families here.
Fun anecdote is I saw that we have 36,000 restaurant seats in this town. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So,
I wonder which one has the most. Do we know that off the top of our heads? Which Portsmouth restaurant would have the most seats?
I think it used to be the Brewery.
Could have been. I think with Thirsty Moose's expansion.
That's a good shout. How big is Surf? I've only been there once, so.
Surf and their
Martingale
other space.
Wharf, there's a good amount.
So, yeah, when our population swells in the heat of the summer and we've got everyone from New England coming and convening on downtown Portsmouth, particularly take Market Square Day, middle of June, beautiful day, road race in the morning, every vendor's out on the street. Now our population or the daily population for that time could be anywhere north of 100,000.
Sure.
That is so crazy.
And, personally speaking, I've almost never had to wait that long at a restaurant in downtown Portsmouth, but I almost like...
That's because you're the king. They get you to the front of the line.
That was not meant to be a weird flex. That was not meant to be...
I knew what you meant.
That was not to be a humble brag by any stretch. No, my point in that rambling is we want that. We want these places to be almost like, oh my gosh, we're so busy, we're having a wait. instead of places closing on Mondays and Tuesdays in the winter,
right,
how can we facilitate that year round? So back to your point about, development and the population, I think the growth is inevitable, but we don't need to destroy the community in the waves of that. Okay. We want to be smart about it and savvy. So in the same way that a business has to adapt, as we talked about earlier, I think Portsmouth has to adapt, and our zoning will adapt along with that.
On the quick aside for restaurants, Nate, we are in the thick of restaurant week here for Portsmouth, which funnily enough, expands beyond Portsmouth. I've got
Portsmouth Restaurant Week, Portsmouth and the Seacoast, RWPS.
Oh, okay. The full name. How long has this been going on? It happens twice a year. Tell me more about the history of this, what it entails, and how all the people can get involved.
Restaurant Week Portsmouth and the Seacoast is one of the gold standards of the projects that we do here. Again, that's another collaboration. It's with us and the restaurateur community. There's a committee of restaurateurs and some of us from the chamber that put this on, and we do a lot of the behind the scenes work. Twice a year in what's called the shoulder seasons. And I didn't know this before I worked in this industry, but if this is your main tourism season, shoulder seasons are on both sides of it. So as Andrew was talking about this summer, if we tried to do Restaurant Week during Market Square Day, oh man, the restaurateurs would run us out of town. They are busy then. They're turning tables over as fast as they can. Like the Restaurant Week model, which is one price for 3 courses, does not fit then. But in the shoulder seasons, when they're in between big rushes, so for example, in November, when the main tourism season has wrapped, we're about to get into the holidays, they need that shot of life, and all the businesses around the restaurants benefit from that shot of life. And then this time of year where, it's been winter, you had the uptick for Valentine's Day, but you haven't had Mother's Day and you haven't had Easter yet. That's another time that a shot in the arm is good. So a 10-day period in both the spring and the fall, we are up to, I believe, 37 restaurants, which is the highest that it has been since 2020. We are super pumped about that. And what is remarkable about that 37 number is that is happening even when we have lost some restaurants that have always participated, like the Franklin, like the Portsmouth Brewery. So it's really exciting. And so 10 days this spring, it's going to be April 10th to the 19th. November, it'll be somewhere around right after Halloween and Election Day.
Oh, breaking news, exclusive here. Love that.
Yeah.
It's like a hell yeah, let's break out of our hibernation and start walking around the sidewalk.
Totally. And there's definitely people that make a point of hitting multiple restaurants.
Oh yeah, I've got 4 reservations.
There you go.
I'm very excited. To the point of just talking about how special this town is.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other tourist towns that in the shoulder seasons, really go all out to support local in this way with a restaurant week, with a local love, with an art round town, where there's these things for the locals.
Yeah. We look around and we're getting ideas from Boston and Portland for Restaurant Week. Those are the communities that we're looking towards.
Very cool. I'm hoping to win the gift card that you guys are.
I think there's a few different gift cards out there. That's part of it too. So the restaurants, they buy in with a certain amount of cash that goes towards the ad buy, and they also contribute 2 gift cards each that go into these promotions as well.
Okay, well, everyone go make your Restaurant Week reservations.
RestaurantWeekPortsmouth.com. We'll bring you all the menus, and then you call the restaurants.
Good plug.
Yes, good man. Back to you, Andrew. There's another thing happening building-wise, this co-living space.
Sure.
Tell me more what this is, what the plans are, what you cannot disclose.
Sure. So at the city level and national level as well, there's been such an emphasis on accessibility, and we've talked about it from an affordability standpoint, but how do you get there? Other than creating more housing units, which by nature of demand, as we kind of referenced, will always be expensive because you can charge a lot. How else do you achieve that? And we're thinking back to a spinoff of, and hold your breath, a rooming house. And even though we've had rooming houses here in Portsmouth in the past that have not been the most enjoyable or best neighbors.
Define that. What is that?
A rooming house is a common share of major utilities in a house, a kitchen, living room, or living space, and maybe storage space, but individual bedrooms. So co-living is now your modern day example of that, where hopefully by economies of scale, a developer can put more residents under one roof with common elements, again, the kitchen and living room, and reduce that cost basis, not only for themselves as the owner, but also for the residents. So the tenants of that could effectively sign a rental agreement anywhere from 30 days to 3 months to maybe a year or thereafter. So that I think is more of a flexible mindset, where a pretty good example would be, you used to have to buy an entire album to listen to one song. Now you can go and find one song on Spotify and listen to that one song. So I think it's a pretty good example of how you can access something for a shorter amount of time for a lower amount of money, because utilities will be included. You have common elements, and you'll be within access to things in the downtown. So right now, that co-living zoning ordinance that is being proposed is currently only applicable in the downtown zone, where people may not need a car. So you have to be within a certain distance of a parking garage, or if you're not, you have to provide parking. So all of these items are considered to be a reduction of red tape, so to speak, for the residents or hopeful residents of downtown.
Andrew, since we last spoke, this will, 7 or 8 months ago, I'm sure a lot has changed in real estate, as it always is. We've also had at the national level, a change in presidential administration, which I'm sure brings about all sorts of changes that come about with that. Where we are now in comparison to the last time we spoke last summer, how would you assess the state of Seacoast real estate?
Residentially or commercially, or both?
Let's go residentially.
Residential, it's so funny. I think information is so accessible these days, which is for the better and worse sometimes. We get so many headlines on a daily basis that can be conflicting. And I'm not here to say that some people are right and some people are wrong, but when you choose to read certain headlines, you're omitting other information that could also be true. And if you follow what I'm saying, you're going to read certain data that the real estate industry is horrible. The mortgage applications were the lowest they've ever been in 30 years nationally last week. And yet here I am. And last month, I just helped 2 Portsmouth locals these are people that are under the age of 35 and grew up in Portsmouth, buy homes in Portsmouth for under $700,000. And I don't know what that says about me or about the market, that it's under 700 and not maybe 500. One of them was under 500. And, this individual wanted to be in proximity to town. They work in Portsmouth in Pease, and they're involved in the social leagues, like social kickball. And this person just had a priority on being accessible to town and their friends. So I think that the residential real estate market in this area is still extremely strong, would be one word to use, but it's still not impossible. And I want to emphasize that for those, much like a restaurant, there's a different taste or application or appropriate offering for everyone. And it's just about finding that and being patient with it.
Okay, since you piqued my interest, what about commercially?
I think Portsmouth has taken on such a dynamic commercial landscape where we could be talking to industrial users, we could be talking to distribution. So in Pease right now, there's a large distribution center going in, but now here downtown, we're talking about 1,000 square foot retail space that you could house anything from a coffee shop to a clothing store to an office space. And I would say on the commercial front, office space is still not doing well, which may not come as a shocker to most people. But maybe those spaces are able to pivot, and maybe those spaces can now be perceived and opened as something that they could not be previously. So as we've talked about adaptation, the commercial real estate market is currently adapting to what is in the strongest demand.
Nate.
Yeah.
Where should I build the Seacoast Story Studios in Portsmouth?
Oh, yikes. I mean, I'm personally, because from New England, I'm a sucker for mill spaces. I love mills. And they're doing cool things out in the West End. I think that's a great place. If you ever need equipment real quick, you'll be near Gary's. So that's great.
True.
So I mean, that would be one of my thoughts. And
the Button Factory, is there?
Yeah, Button Factory.
That'd be kind of cool.
Talking to the folks at WSCA out there, doing some work there. There's definitely some great places to get involved, and there might be the right opportunity for honestly out at Pease. People think about it as offices, but there's space, and there might be the right opportunity that you wouldn't know about unless you talk to some of the property managers out there.
Okay, good to know. If anyone is listening and wants to facilitate that for me, slide into the DMs. Nate, can I ask you to go fetch Hope for us?
Yeah,
She said she's done with her meeting at 12.
Okay, so she knows that you're asking for her. I'm not going to be like, hey, okay, go be on a podcast right now.
Yeah, she knows.
All right, I can do that.
Joined now by Hope Anderson, the tourism manager for Portsmouth's Chamber Collaborative here. Hope, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to grill you with just a couple quick questions. You recently went to Canada.
I did.
Which is very cool. So a week or so, or a few days before that, there was an article published in Seacoast Online about the expected numbers for tourism to Portsmouth from Canada are expected to be down this year. As I've been told, the quote, rest of the world hates us for things happening in this country. And so you went to Montreal to talk about Portsmouth and to hype up the Seacoast in this area to get the Canadians back and to come hang out this summer. Can you just tell me more about this experience and what you know about the expected numbers for tourism this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish it was a little bit more predictable and that I could give you the numbers, but I was pleasantly surprised by my experience in Canada. I was really nervous to go and see how people were going to react to us. So when I got to the hotel on Friday, as one does, I went down to the bar, and our Canadian bartender was nothing but friendly to us. So immediately that made my nerves go away. So we showed up to the show on Saturday, and people are a little bit more interested in the camper vans and the cool bungee cords than getting some pamphlets about going to New Hampshire. But once people did make their way over to us, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. We had people that are still planning on coming for their trips. What surprised me was a lot of people were still planning on coming, but made a point to say we're not going to post on social media. So their friends won't know that they're coming. It's like those people who have certain political beliefs and don't want to share that with their community.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of shame in coming, but they're still coming. We had some people who said they've been to America every year for 30 years and they won't be coming this year, but they're happy to join us again in 3 years. And, I think the overall message that we wanted to convey is that you're welcome by your neighbors from the South, and we would love to have you. We can't control what the administration is doing, but we can only control how inviting we are. And we definitely still want the Canadians to come visit us.
Yeah. So what was the pitch that you were making for Portsmouth to foreigners?
Yeah, good question. First of all, a lot of it started with, where is Portsmouth? We know a lot of them knew where Hampton was. That's a very popular.
Wow, interesting.
And I'll tell you why. Hampton is the closest ocean to Montreal, believe it or not.
Huh.
Which shocked me when I learned that. Yep. So if they want to go to the ocean, the fastest way they can get there is to go to Hampton.
Wow.
Yeah. So that
they got to use that as a selling point.
Right. So then we would say, hey, if you want to go to the ocean, we're right above. And definitely I use tax-free shopping as a big one.
Yeah.
Got a lot of comments about the Canadian dollar, how that's lower. So it's a lot more expensive for them to come here now. But to pitch Portsmouth, it's almost kind of like old Montreal in a way. A lot of the brick buildings, we have a great art scene in this community, which I think people from Montreal really enjoy. Good eats, the boutique shopping, art galleries, being on the water. That was mostly our selling point.
So how do you feel about the tourism season that we're about to have? Do you think it will be more than seasons past, less than seasons past, on par with seasons past? Because it's my understanding that last summer it was down.
It was down last summer. I'm optimistic, but that's just kind of who I am as a person. I do think it depends so much on the weather. I think that is such a huge thing. Last 2 summers ago, it rained all the time. So Hampton's numbers were down and ours were up because you can do a lot indoors here. Last summer, it was so beautiful. Hampton's numbers were up, ours were down slightly. But what I hear from the hotels and the retailers and the galleries and the restaurants is they remain hopeful because people are still coming out. And I think we need to make a push on our locals to go downtown. What I hear from a lot of people is that locals don't go downtown anymore. And you know, that classic, oh, it's tourist season, I don't want to go downtown. But if the tourists aren't coming, guess what? You're going to find a parking spot. You're going to find one either way. But you're going to find a parking spot if we have less people. So I just think it's so important to show up for our community, to keep the vibrancy there. And what makes Portsmouth so special is all of the people in our community and the business owners here. And if we want to keep that going, I really think we need to show up. Maybe when people from out of the country aren't, I think it's on us to kind of get out there.
Okay. Thank you, Hope. You can pass the microphone back off to Nate.
Great.
Your podcast debut.
Thank you. I've actually been on a podcast.
Okay. Oh, no big deal. Okay. Didn't know I was dealing with a star here.
Was that okay?
Yeah. It's like really good.
Yeah, like you talk, you're great.
Yes.
Speaking of international, Andrew, and you guys are almost done, I swear. You're going abroad very soon.
Yeah.
To haphazardly run the London Marathon.
I will start the London Marathon. The intent is to finish. I was fortunate enough to get a great message and call from a charity out of New York that had a vacant bib for the London Marathon.
They called you?
Yeah, who knows?
Real estate king.
You can evidently Instagram your way to anything these days, whether it's your next girlfriend or a London Marathon bib. But it's one of the world majors. I'm so fortunate to have the chance to do it. 55,000 people run the race, and it's on the 27th. So I'm really stoked to see what that whole area looks like, and I'll have 26 miles to figure that out.
Have you run a marathon before?
Yeah. I've run a handful of them in Toronto, actually. Internationally was another one. But this one is incredible because not only does the landscape make for a nice flat course,
right? Sure.
But also just a really exciting historic tour through London.
Yeah.
So I'm very optimistic while conservative that I will not be breaking any land speed records.
Well, I can't wait to hear about how this goes. This caught my attention because you posted about, because you have to raise funds for racing. And you basically said, like, for this specific dollar amount, I will do this. For this dollar amount, I will do that. Can you tell some of the people what they can do to support you and what their $50, $100, $500 will get them?
Most importantly, I'll tell you what the money goes to. The charity that I'm running on behalf of is a sober living and rehab organization out of New York City, and they facilitate people back into the general community after they've gone through a rehab process, and they also own and operate homes for that. And so pretty easy to buy into that mission statement, right? But because I am who I am, and because I know that people get hit up for donations all the time, I figured, you know what, let's make it fun. If somebody wants to donate $100, I'll put their name on my shirt. If somebody wants to donate $500, they can choose what color my hair is, and maybe for $1,000 they can choose what style hair I have. So if you want to see me shave my head or make a mohawk, and they can also choose the color. So I'm $2,500 into a $5,000 raise, and that to me is really exciting. I feel so appreciative that people actually give a damn and want to participate in that. So it's just it's really cool.
So if you are a Seacoast business owner out there and you want your business splattered across this man's chest while he runs through the streets of London, England, and the people will probably think, why he's advertising these Portsmouth, England businesses, not Portsmouth, New Hampshire. But alas,
who cares? I'm happy to be shameless about it.
Well, thank you so much for both of you joining me today. We have one final question. We ask this same final question at the end of every episode, every week. I'll ask this to both of you guys. We haven't really dug into your life stories at all on this podcast. This has been a different one, but we love to get reflective on every show. Nate, I will start with you, and then we'll finish with the king. Nate, knowing what you know now about how your life has turned out, what advice would you give? What would you tell your 22-year-old self about how the next couple of years are going to pan out for you? What would you want that kid to know?
No, I got this one. I spent a lot of time in previous jobs prepared to kind of fight for our position. which I thought was the right way to be. And partially it is, but at the same time, I should have been a more collaborative person when I was younger. Should have maybe recognized that while I'm on one side of a disagreement with somebody now, we're probably going to be agreeing on something else a little bit later, and to keep this going and separate from the other thing. So I would tell my younger self to be more focused on that. In a lot of places I was, but I think professionally there were times that I would have handled things differently.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And great haircut, by the way.
Thank you.
Andrew, same question to you. Now, again, you're what, like 29, so you don't have that much time passed, but what would you tell your...
I've lived enough lives, made enough mistakes for several people. I operate as a self-employed individual, so it's not like I have somebody tapping me on the shoulder telling me what to do every day. But in that sense, I've always gone at things like 110 miles an hour and been just like, okay, my intensity is going to dictate my success. When in reality, you have to commit and you have to be passionate about what you're doing, but you can't be afraid to pivot. You can't be afraid to be open-minded and to adjusting your course. And for me, I never thought I was going to get a master's degree. I never thought I would necessarily live in Miami, Florida. But when that opportunity presented itself, I really couldn't find a negative or a con necessarily to put on that list. So I said, sure, why not? And turns out that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So you can go full speed, but go full speed and keep your head up and on a swivel, because there are always opportunities that you may not think will present themselves to you, but could ultimately turn out to be some of the most impactful.
Nate, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you both at Restaurant Week.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
That's Andrew Simonis of Simonis Realty, alongside Nate Hastings and Hope Anderson of the Portsmouth Chamber Collaborative. To support them, support Portsmouth. Attend local love on Thursday, make a Restaurant Week reservation, or share a social media post from your favorite Portsmouth business. Trust me when I say that every little thing helps, which feels like a great time to remind you that to support this show, you can come to the Seacoast Stories West End Bar Crawl on April 25th. The link to free tickets and more information is in today's show notes. I'll be back next Monday with another Portsmouth business. But until then, if you see me around town this week, perhaps at Read More Books and Brews, Botanica, or Kava, then please stop me and say hi. I would love to hear your story. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you more than you could ever know. I hope you all have a great week. Live free or die.